With Richard Tice, the Reform UK leader, who's told us that he's had death threats because of his party's pursuit of a public referendum on the UK's net zero policies. He tells us that he's been cancelled and faced intimidation simply because he's trying to open up a national debate on the subject at a time when millions are facing a cost of living crisis. And as well, actually, it's not just him. It's not just members of his party, of his group. It's also, actually, the venues where they've been told to put these things on. So they're trying to organise rallies, I suppose you could say, a discussion anyway. And actually, those venues have received calls and received emails where they said there'll be, quotes, trouble if they let it go ahead. Here's the interview. Richard, thank you very much for joining us and giving us this exclusive, actually, here at GB News. Much appreciated. So I was hoping that you might be able to tell me a little bit about what's going on with your conversation that you want to have about the big green agenda, about net zero, because my understanding is that there's been death threats received and also cancellations.
It's been shocking, Patrick. You know, we're trying to launch a campaign to have a national debate and discussion about the best way to reduce emissions. We think that Boris's net zero plans are flawed, that they are unaffordable, and they'll just send jobs and money overseas to places like China. So we want a national debate on that and a national debate about using shale gas. Nothing wrong with that in a democracy where freedom of speech is supposedly welcome. But no, the first venue, when we announced what we wanted to talk about, they cancelled us, just put it out on Twitter. The second venue that we rebooked in Bolton, a couple of days later, they've had intimidatory threats, they've been bullied, they've been intimidated. And then likewise, some of the speakers that we had lined up, like Graham Stringer from the Labour Party, he was essentially bullied by his whips and by the leader of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, that if he came and spoke at our event as a cross-party event, and that should be welcome to find solutions, that actually he'd have the whip withdrawn. So, it's a terrible place to be. And so we've reluctantly, Patrick, had to conclude that we had to cancel the event because of the threats to our speakers and to the hundreds and hundreds of people who wanted to come and attend.
Are you concerned that those threats might actually become more than that? They might actually spill over into reality?
A series of things. I've talked about, obviously, the whip being withdrawn, but to the venue owner, it was made very clear that we were the wrong sort of people to come and speak in his venue, where they quite often have weddings and things, and that it would cause, the specific word it would result in trouble. That was one of the expressions I saw. But you know, he had numerous of these threats within hours of that venue being announced. And what really worries me here, Patrick, is that the vitriol and abuse that we're receiving since we announced this campaign about 12 days ago, it's worse than Brexit, Patrick. And it's hard to believe that anything could be worse than the vitriol and abuse of Brexit. But this is far worse. And the reason, Patrick, is the vested interests, the money, the huge profits being made by the renewable industry, by the green industry, by the wind farm owners, the solar farm owners, and of course by, for example, Russia itself. Let's remember the shale gas industry, the anti-fracking lobbying groups. It's very clear now that not only here in the UK but across Europe, in Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, Spain, all of the anti-fracking lobbying groups were funded indirectly, circuitously from Russia, because essentially Russia didn't want us to have cheap domestic gas. They wanted us all to be dependent on them. We fell for it, and look at the trouble that's given us all now.
Are you concerned that it might go further than threats, that actually someone might take serious action?
Well, let's wait and see. What we do know is they employed some pretty underhand and bullying tactics when Quadrilla tried to drill for shale gas a couple of years ago. So yeah, I think it probably will get worse. But you know, we're not going to be dissuaded. If we can't hold big rallies, cross-party rallies, then we'll find other interesting activities and stunts and ways of engaging the great British people in a proper debate. And I just want to reiterate, Patrick, we want a debate on net zero because we think there are better, more affordable, smarter, more British ways to reduce emissions. And we think that actually it's so important that they want to change the way we heat our homes, the cars we drive, the meat we eat, and how much we travel. These are life-changing decisions, and therefore it should require a referendum, because all of Westminster is on one side of this debate. And I actually think the majority of the British people are on the other side of the British debate. Rather like Brexit, funnily enough, isn't it? Does that ring a bell?
From where I'm sitting, there's a bit of an irony here, Richard, because, you know, you're essentially just trying to look after the common man and woman, aren't you? And look after the pounds in their pocket, and that's causing such a hoo-ha.
The truth is, Patrick, that millions of British people are not managing, they're suffering. And if we use shale gas, then we can dramatically slash all our energy bills, because that's the simple fact is we've got this treasure under our feet. It's like treasure under the floorboards of your home, Patrick. And all you've got to do is find a nice clean screwdriver to neatly and safely lift the floorboard and dig out the treasure. And if I told you the value of the treasure is equal to the value of your mortgage, I think you're going to go and find a decent screwdriver pretty sharpish, aren't you?
You know, I shouldn't laugh really, but it does make me laugh a bit, because you mentioned it about it being worse than what you guys had to put up with throughout the Brexit campaign. I imagine that was pretty awful for you. I know it was, really. And these people, like the Remainers, they always say they're the good guys. They're the nice ones. And actually, they're not, are they?
No, it's clear. Actually, they're bullies, and we know what you have to do with bullies. It's a bit like Putin, the bully. You've got to stand up to him. And these eco-extremists, these fanatics, we as the great, sensible British people who want cheap, domestic, reliable, affordable energy, we need to stand up to them. And we need to say, thanks very much, but we're not going to fall for your intimidation, your bullying, and we're going to use our domestic shale gas and release that treasure. That's what we need to do, and we've got to stand up to them.
Look, Richard, thank you very much for making the time for us and going out of your way to do so. Good luck. I hope you stay safe and everything goes well for you. And thanks, of course, for giving us an exclusive right here on GB News.